Hi everyone, this is Margaret Hershey at Home with Hershey's, and thank you for joining us for our Connectable Life show today on Motivational Monday. Now, Monday is always a tricky day, and as you know, most heart attacks in the world, the most suicides in the world all happen at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, because it just sort of hits you then, oh my gosh, this is it. So we're just hoping that you are feeling really bright-eyed, bushy-tailed and wonderful today, and that you are ready for an exciting week as we are here at Hershey's. And welcome to my co-hosts, Stacey and Jess from Connectable Life. How are you girls doing, and how's it been the past month?
Good morning, everybody. Hi, Margaret. Thanks so much. Yeah, all good in the Connectable Life headquarters, if we can call it that. I was just looking now. This morning is our 38th Motivational Monday, which I think is incredible. So thank you so much to you for holding this space for that many sessions and for everybody joining us that many times. I think it's proven to be such a powerful time for all of us involved, not just for the people that join us. So yeah, I was really excited to see that.
Yeah. Stacey, outside in the wind, just say hi. I don't know that you'll be able to say much more.
I am outside. But isn't this the beautiful part about how the world has changed, is that we can be anywhere. I can be outside, close to the Wi-Fi, but having to be outside and still meet with you here while my kids are on holiday and we at a beachside little village. So it's so nice to be able to connect anywhere, anytime. So thank you so much, Margaret. We love this space and we're very excited for this morning.
Yes, because Deb is absolutely amazing. I've known her for many years and she's my daughter's best friend, so I know extremely well. But Jess, come on and tell us more about Deb that people don't know.
Perfect, thank you. So thank you so much for joining us this morning, Deb. I know I'm especially excited for this morning's session. I think grief is something that we've all felt hugely over the past couple of years in particular. And there's just been so much loss in all its sort of forms. So it's going to be so useful for, I think, all of us that are here today. So those of you that don't know Deb, she is a coach, psychologist, and facilitator who is passionate about helping others to increase their personal and professional effectiveness. Deb has a BCom degree from UKZN and a master's in counselling from Wits University. And prior to doing her master's, Deb gained a wealth of experience and knowledge working for an international consulting firm in Johannesburg, a technology firm in the US, and a large multinational communications company in the UK. In recent years, Deb has lived in Asia, so offers rich experience in managing change and diverse cultures. On returning to South Africa, Deb became the director of Grace Counselling, which is really, really cool. And there she led a team of over 100 volunteer counselors through the pandemic, coaching and training in a number of areas, but more specifically in the area of grief. Deb recently returned to private practice, enabling her to spend more time with her family. And Deb uses her corporate experience in combination with her psychological training to facilitate growth and healing in her clients. She encourages others to live and lead wisely. As a dedicated wife and mother to 3 busy boys, Deb advocates regular Tula time and a healthy work-life balance. I love that, the Tula time. So I don't think there's a better person to join us this morning to speak about everything that's happened in our world in the past couple of years, on top of everything else that happens in our own personal lives. So thank you so much, Deb, for joining us, and can't wait to hear everything that you have to say.
Thank you, Jess. It's a real privilege to be with you here on Motivational Monday. I must say, I often go for a long walk on a Monday morning, and then I have my first client at 10, and generally you were at a 9 a.m. slot. So I always used to press on Motivational Mondays, and I've just gained so much from these Motivational Mondays. So thank you to you all, from boundaries to nutrition information to relationships. It's just been an amazing thing. So thank you, Margaret, and thank you to the Connectable Life team.
Yeah,
thanks so much.
And, you know, I think all of us have felt some sort of grief over the last 2 years, even if we haven't lost anybody close to us. There's that horrible sinking feeling that you start to feel that, oh my gosh, you know, what's going to happen next? And there's anxiety at work has taken over a lot. People are anxious, you know, you've got, you'd like everything to be normal and stable, and now it isn't. You know, there's no such thing. What is the new normal? Nobody knows. How does one deal with that sort of anxiousness that does tend to come on from time to time?
Oh, Margaret, how do we deal with this anxiety? I think so often we don't actually realize when we're feeling anxious. So I think probably the best thing is to be more mindful of what we are feeling, whether it's grief or whether it's anxiety. So often we have grown up just pushing our emotions down. And emotions are like a ball. When you push it underwater, they just pop back up. So we often, if we don't deal with our emotions and become more mindful and aware of them, then they can manifest in our body. For example, the body keeps score. So it's so important for us to stop and think, okay, I'm feeling itchy and scratchy. What is going on? What is the emotion that I'm feeling? We name it to tame it.
Yeah. Okay. Now, when you feel these emotions, and we've taught, I mean, I had my mother's English, so you keep your emotions down. You don't let anybody know how you feel. You don't wash your dirty washing in public. You keep quiet. You know, just zip up and wear beige, and that's how it's supposed to be. But now we can't.
My mom's favorite saying, Margaret. Yeah.
Zip up and wear beige, and that's where we were brought up as girls, to be nice and sweet and kind, and just to keep quiet and be done. But today, women are getting out there. They're making it happen. And I heard an amazing thing. Every day at work, we've got to tell a joke. So the joke, this fellow comes up and he says, what's the difference between a clever man and a stupid man? And the answer is there's no difference. They both think they know it all. And then I went back to, okay, what's the difference between a clever woman and a stupid woman? There's no difference. They both doubt themselves. And my thing to women was, if we're going to break that glass ceiling, if we want to get out, put ourselves out there, we have to stop that narrative. We have to think that we know it all. We can do anything and go out there. But for the ordinary woman who's sitting at home thinking, oh my gosh, woe is me. What's going to happen to me now? How can we actually get ourselves towards ourselves to get going forward?
Well, again, I think it's becoming so aware of what is playing in your head. What are you telling yourself? Oh my gosh, like that woman at home sitting at home. How am I going to get out? What am I going to do? You have to be aware of the self-talk. It's like music playing in the background. So when you go to a restaurant, you're often not aware of the music playing until someone says, oh, I love the song. And then you start listening to the words of the song. We need to be aware of what we are telling ourselves. And we need to challenge that. So I love the 3 C's. I often use this with my clients. First C is for catch, the next is challenge, and the next is change. Catch yourself when the story you're telling yourself about yourself is not a healthy one. Challenge it. And if you can't do that yourself, then speak to someone, either a good friend or a professional, someone that can help you to challenge your self-talk, to make it more positive and to get you motivated, and then to change your self-talk. But I also think, to be realistic, we don't all have bad days where we all feel down, but those pass and then good days will come. So it's also about being able to hold ambiguity, both the hard days and the good days. Does that make sense? About integrating.
But now, in the past, I know that I had a problem where a man did me down, and I bore a grudge for 14 years. And eventually I realized I could not do it myself. I had to get over this grudge. And I did go to what I would call a shrink. Now, in those days, it was very taboo. I didn't tell anybody. I went, and it took me 3 sessions, and I was paying at those days 300 Rand a session. So I was determined to get over this. And eventually I got over it, and they took me through it, and I got over it. It was like a physical relief, because I realized that I'd been holding that hot coal. It hadn't affected him at all, but I've been holding that hot coal to me. So, but now it's not so much of a taboo anymore, but people still feel a little bit uncomfortable to go and ask somebody for help. As the helper, how can you sort of reach those people? Because a lot of people are sitting with these things that they're holding on to, like the hot coal, and they don't know who to go to. So that's why I always have you on the show, and we have Connectable Life on the show, so people know that there is somebody out there who will be able to help them. What is that? How do you get over that feeling of, oh my gosh, I actually need help, and I'm going to ask somebody for it? Because we're not used to asking for things. We wait to be offered, but you can't come out and offer us, hey, excuse me, you need a bit of help here. So how does one go about that?
Well, I think if you look at anyone who has been successful or does well in life, they get help from others. Look at a professional athlete. They have a coach that helps them and guides them in their area of expertise. If there's an area where we are struggling, we need to put up our hand and say, please help me. And there's no shame in that. You know, if you're learning how to swim, you go to a swim coach, for example. If you're learning how to write a book, you can go to a person who helps you to write a book. If you are learning how to read emotions and emotional literacy, or you are struggling with unforgiveness, go to someone who can help you to work through that. I think that actually the best thing you can do is invest in your mental health, because the rewards are so rich in all areas of life. So love yourself enough to invest in yourself and go to therapy. Seek help when you need it.
Now, I really want to bring Stacey in here, because Stacey loves asking for help. She has no scrum in asking for help from anybody. So Stacey, and that's how I think Connectable Life came about. You're a great one for asking for help on any sphere.
Yeah. Thank you, Margaret. And it has been such a journey in my life. So Deb, a couple of years ago, my brother was killed in a car accident, and that kind of set off a kind of snowball effect where one thing happened after another. And eventually I got to the place where my husband said, you desperately need to see somebody. And the closest person that I could find was in Richards Bay. So it was an hour's drive from me. So what I would do is I'd book a 2-hour session, and I'll drive through to Richards Bay, have the session, and then drive back. And I did that every week for about a year. And it was quite intense, but it was so worth it. And that changed my life. He just seeing a psychologist, seeing a counselor, because after him I moved over to a counselor, and it was the most beneficial thing I ever did. And working through that grief was so pivotal. But often at times I find that I slump back into that. And do you find that with your clients, that they will come to you for one thing and it will open up this can of worms for a million other things, and the grief would have manifested in other areas?
Oh, Stacey, first of all, I just want to say how sorry I am to hear that you lost your brother. That is a massive, and it sounds like it was a tragic loss as well. So I'm really sorry. Losing a sibling is such a painful experience. So, and I want to commend you on being proactive and seeking support when you needed it. That shows huge strength of character to do that. And well done to your husband for encouraging you.
It was actually all him. I potentially wouldn't have gone.
Well,
it was all him,
well done,
you know.
Well done to him for speaking that truth into your life. And maybe there's someone, you know, for our listeners, maybe you need to be speaking to someone else who you know who needs help. Encourage them to get support. Says, it often happens when people come and see me for one thing, there's actually a million other things that they haven't stopped to reflect about, to think about. They haven't realized the impact of those things on their life. I know recently I had a client who was devastated about the loss of her dog. But in fact, she hadn't dealt with the loss of her husband from a few years ago. So it's amazing how little things can trigger the release of other things that have happened in our life. And we don't even notice. Grief piles itself on top of each other, one thing about another, one thing or another, and then something little happens and it all comes exploding out. And that's why it's so good to learn how to deal with things as they happen and not let it pile up and then have this volcanic explosion. But I also wanted to say that I think everyone should have someone that they can speak to and go back to in different times of their lives. A lot of my clients, I'll see them for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks over something, then I won't see them for about 4 years, and then they'll come back. So when you're struggling, just to have that person that you can tap into is a beautiful thing. So don't be afraid to go back to that guy when you are struggling again, Stace.
Fantastic.
Thanks,
Well done,
Deb.
Stacey.
Yeah,
Sorry, Stacey, you got a bit of interference there. Just come on in then and say from your side.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and quickly chat about the stigma around mental health again, because that's one of our huge campaigns at Connectable Life, is trying to stomp out the stigma, and basically saying that it's okay to reach out for help, you know. And we equate it to, if you've got a brain, you've got brain health, which means you've got mental health. And just like any of us would look after our physical health, we need to be doing the same with our mental health. Otherwise, we're just never going to sort of achieve that overall wellness that we all want at the end of the day. Really, as different as we all are, we want to be at peace, and we want to feel whole, and we want to feel balanced. And we're never, ever going to achieve that if we don't maintain our mental health, or our brains, if we want to call it that, if we don't want to use the voodoo word of mental health. So it really is something that we should all just be doing. I often like to think to myself, if you've got a child, is it something that you would help your child with? Is it something that you would get help for your child? Because I think 9 times out of 10 as a parent, you're not going to say no to helping your child, but very often we say no to helping ourselves, and to sort of paint ourselves with the same brush that we paint our kids and loved ones with. If a friend came to you and said, what should I do? Of course, you're going to say, get help. Let's find someone. Let's figure it out. And to look yourself in the mirror and sort of say the same thing. Yeah.
So true, Jess, so true. We really, it is. If we're struggling physically, we go to the doctor. If we're struggling emotionally, see a professional, get help. Help.
Now, Deb, what I want to ask you is, in my house, we never mentioned anything like that. So if somebody died, you just didn't mention it. You didn't go and say, I'm sorry, or anything. We just didn't mention it. We bluffed it didn't happen. And today, a lot of people still just, skid past it. No, it was so bad. I'm over it now. But they're really not. So a normal person, and I mean, I have 2,500 staff who have horrendous things happening to their family. They lose children, they lose husbands. What do you say? Because I'm always too scared to say anything, because I've got a big mouth and I'm always too scared I'm going to say the wrong thing. So I sometimes rather don't say anything. I can remember one of our very precious staff lost his wife in a car accident. And I saw him, I did not know what to say to him. How does one approach that type of thing?
Oh, it's always tough when someone's gone through something tragic, knowing what to say. But I think the best thing you can do, Margaret, is show empathy. And that's not so much connecting with the experience, because we can't all have experienced what everyone else has experienced, but it's about connecting with the emotions in the experience.
Yeah.
So saying something like, I can imagine what you're going through must be really painful. And I need you to know that I'm holding you in my heart.
Yeah.
Or that you are in my thoughts and prayers. So just connecting with the emotion of what they're going through. Or I can imagine it must be really terrifying having, lost your job at this time, or whatever it is. So thinking, put yourself in the person's shoes and connect with the emotion. And that's generally when people feel seen and heard. And that's how you develop a connection with others. And remember, people heal in connection. People heal in community. So long as we can develop a beautiful connection with someone over what they must have gone through, it's a very powerful, powerful thing.
Yeah, that's so true. Now, you went through quite a lot of different emotions with people during COVID, and we lost really precious people, and you had people who lost babies and things like that. How does it not affect you, and how do you manage to counsel them and not be affected yourself by, we get home and everybody's bought new stuff and we have a real fun day. When you get home, how do you deal with it yourself, and how do you separate yourself from that person?
Oh my gosh, Margaret, if I had a magic wand, I would love to know the answer, how we separate personal from professional. Of course, we can't, but there are definitely things that we can all do to look after ourselves in terms of just that burnout. I know the last 3 years over COVID, I ran really hard, both professionally and personally. And I've had to, I actually joke, I say I lived at breakneck speed, and I ended up having a massive neck fusion earlier this year, which has been such a gift, because it's made me slow down and just really take heed of what I say yes to and what I say no to. And it's made me realize the importance of self-care, looking after your soul, not just running hard, doing things like exercise. Like, that is just a given. Exercise is the best natural antidepressant. So I know you love your yoga. Many people love their running. I love my Pilates and walking and gym. So important. Actually, the acronym that I use for clients is SEEDS. The S is for sleep. Get enough sleep. Don't be tired. When we're tired, our perspective is skewed. E is for exercise. The next E of the SEEDS is for educate.
Yeah.
If you don't know what to do, get in touch with someone who does, or educate yourself on where you need. Keep on going. It's personal development. It's keeping on making the most of yourself. The D is for diet, of course, eating healthily, nourishing your body. And then the S, one is for social, the importance of being in community and connecting with other people. So important if you're grieving. I know many people love to be introverted and just stay at home. They don't have the energy to connect. But in fact, it's often through connecting with others that we heal and we get energy. And then the other is for spirituality. I think the importance of having a faith to keep your hope alive.
Yeah.
So those are the seeds of self-care. Thank you for putting them, Jess, in the chat. Great.
Very good. Now, we've got something that's coming on Facebook Live here. It says, is there anything you should not say to a grieving person?
Oh, I think there are a few things. Like, I know exactly how you feel, because grief is unique. So I wouldn't say I know exactly how you feel. I know people love to say time heals, which is true, but maybe not what people like to hear when they're in the thick of pain. What else not to say? I'm just thinking, you'll get over this. I remember when I had a miscarriage and being devastated, a lot of people said, well, at least you've got a child, which was true, but felt a little bit lacking empathy in that moment. So it's just really about letting the person know that you are with them, are there for them, and that you can see their pain. They say grief shared is grief abated. So it's just sharing pain with people. I'm here to hold your pain. I'm here to hold a safe space for you with your pain, be it in a 1-minute conversation in the corridor, or be it a closest friend, so you can sit on the couch and say, I'm here with you.
Yeah, I know, being part of a Jewish family, the Jewish family, they equate love to food. So when I started my cooking school in Umlazi, we started cooking for funerals. We specialized in African funerals. So I took women out of the townships. We taught them how to cook, and we taught them that when there was a funeral, they would go in, because obviously the bereaved family didn't want to cook. They would go and they'd do all the cooking, and they would do the whole funeral, which is a huge affair. So that was one of the things that I go in. And so when anybody has lost anybody, I'm always the one who's there with the food. Here's a lasagna for dinner tonight. Here's this. But is that a way to do it? I mean, that's just how the Jewish families do it. It all relates back to food. Let me do the food for you. Do you think that's a wise thing, or not such a wise thing to do?
Margaret, I think that is a very wise thing to do. Any act of service at a time of grief and mourning, I think, is a beautiful thing. And often people say, let me know if I can do anything for you. And a grieving person is unlikely to say, please cook me dinner tonight. So if you show up with a meal or cook for the funeral, how beautiful. That is unbelievable. Just think of what you can do and just drop off a meal. Say, I'll fetch your child from school, or whatever it is. Like, those acts of service, I think, can be so meaningful. And also helping a person to find meaning in their grief is important. So, for example, taking maybe a tree or a plant that they can plant to remember that person, or maybe giving them a beautiful box that can become a memory box. I think that is a very powerful thing to do when someone is grieving. How can they find meaning? I know a very good friend of ours has recently passed away, and I know Lucy has had beautiful bears made from one of her skirts. And I just think that is such an incredible idea. for her son has now got a bear made of his mum's clothing, that is just such a precious thing to do. And I see someone else has had a rose named after her. Things like that have such meaning. And this is actually, David Kessler has written a book. It's called The Sixth Stage of Grief. Many of you may have heard of the 5 stages of grief, but he's written The Sixth Stage of Grief, and that is finding meaning in your grief. And that helps to take people from a place of pain to a place of purpose. It brings healing and hope where we can find meaning.
Yeah,
I love that you say that, Deb. Sorry, Margaret.
Carry on, Jess. Carry on.
I know when my gran passed away, my first son was 1 year old, and the day I said goodbye to her was the day I found out I was pregnant with my second son. And so one of the overwhelming emotions for me was anger. You know, I think it's quite a normal response when you lose someone, but for me it was that they're not going to know my gran, and my gran's not going to know them. And eventually I sort of came to a place where I thought, okay, how can I keep her alive? You know, they still going to know her. She's still going to be in their lives. How do I sort of do that? And the first thing, because they were so little, the first thing that came to mind for me was a nursery rhyme that she used to sing with us every single time we saw her. And so part of the boys' bedtime ritual, I would sing this song to them while putting them to bed every single night. And obviously they were so young that they didn't really put meaning to what was going on. But such a lovely thing happened the other day. My older boy is now 5. So he's slowly starting to sort of understand things, and he often asks about my old granny, but he doesn't really, you know, put it all together. And I've got a picture of her in my room, and he walked past the picture the other day and he picked it up and he said, is this your old granny that's gone to live in heaven? And I said, yes. And he said, can you tell me the story again? So I sort of went through it all as best as you can to a 5-year-old. And he said, he got all teary. And he said, can I just hold this frame for a little bit? And he walked around for the next 4 hours or so, just clutching this frame. And you could just see that it was like the cogs were turning, you know, it was all coming together now. And then about 3 or 4 nights later, we did the same bedtime little routine. We say a prayer. And about 10 minutes after saying the prayer and being in silence, he said, can I add something else to the prayer? And I said, yeah, of course. And he said, I just want to pray for your old granny in heaven. And, you know, just for me, you mentioned spirituality, and for me, faith is just such a huge source of sort of companionship and comfort in these times. You know, nothing takes the grieving process away. Nothing makes it easier, but to find a good source of comfort is what we're kind of looking for. And for me, like keeping her alive in everyday life, and those little moments where you just feel that peace of them actually still being with you, even though they sort of not, is hugely helpful for me. So I love that you mentioned making meaning out of it, and it can be hard. So Deb, what does somebody do if they find themselves stuck in a cycle of a particular emotion? So let's say, for example, anger. I know anger can be an extremely overwhelming one. Angry that you've been robbed of time, angry that you've lost someone, angry that other people haven't lost someone. You know, you can go out in public and see someone with their brother or son or grandfather and then go like, why me? And just that overwhelming anger comes back. And why does it have to be me and not them? And how do you move through these really heavy emotions?
So I think, Jess, I love this story about your finding meaning, by the way, that I hope that many others can learn from that, in keeping those that have passed alive. But in terms of that anger is obviously a very common emotion. And we've got to remember that anger is actually almost a way of managing when pain is so intense. It often comes out at anger. It's almost like a defense mechanism, the body's defense mechanism. And often we project that anger onto other things because we can't deal with that pain. It's too difficult to deal with the pain at that time. So the anger helps us to get to that place where we can deal with the pain. And that's why we often move into a place of sadness or depression following being very angry. But what can we do with that anger? So one of the tools for me when you're grieving that is most powerful is to write. And if you are feeling very angry about something, to write that out, to write why you're feeling angry, what are the reasons, to just do, just write it all out on paper. and then to put it aside and to go back to it at another time. And it's often when you get it out that you're able to repack it. It's almost like a heavy backpack that you're carrying, and then you unpack the backpack by writing it all out, and then you're able to pack it again so that it's lighter and more understandable. I think when we can understand our anger, then we can accept it, and then we can heal. I also think a lot of people get their anger out through things like dance, through music, even through boxing, kickboxing, through running. So there are different ways. But for me, I've often seen that writing, journaling is one of the most helpful tools to get anger out. And another tool that I really want to mention on this webinar is that of an unposted letter. So if someone has passed away and you were angry with them, or not even if you were angry with them, if you just missed them and loved them, to write that person who's passed away a letter, thanking them for the contribution that they made to your life, for the gifts that they've left you. And if there's anything, any regrets, to put that in the letter, anything you wish you could have said to them, to write that in the letter. That is a very, very healing thing to do when you're grieving.
Yeah, absolutely. And now also from Facebook Live, if you're feeling down, what are some of the things you can do on your own right away to make yourself feel better? This person says, I'm a believer in meditation and affirmations, but everyone is different. So what would you recommend?
A few simple things. I would say use your senses, okay? Just simple. First, breathing, like that box breathing. Walk in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. And that calms your nervous system down immediately. I love also being able to close your eyes and picture what for you is a safe place. So often when I'm in pain, we once went to Mauritius at this beautiful holiday, and I'll close my eyes and I'll just picture being in the sea in Mauritius. And it's a beautiful thing. Another thing you could do is soothe yourself through an ice cold drink or maybe a hot cup of tea. Use your senses. It might be that you are a touch person, go and have a hot shower or a nice bath. They often say that actually when you're in the shower and then you end the shower with cold water, it resets your vagus nerve. It can set your whole body, reset your whole body. So if you're stuck, I would say use your senses. Breathing, mindfulness, choose an affirmation or a verse to meditate on. Those would be my key tools for the moment. I hope that makes sense, Margaret.
Oh, no, it definitely does. Now, Nadia says, how soon after a traumatic event, such as a hijacking or robbery, would you suggest a person goes for therapy? Do you go straight away, or do you wait and try and process itself? Now, when I was held up at my Umhlanga store with 7 guys with AK-47s. And, that day was the day we started the Home and Garden show. And I had to just get everything done because we're so busy. And I went and I said, I'm fine. How are you, Margaret? Oh, my God, no, I'm fine. I'm actually fine. And at the end of the day, I was fine. I don't know whether I've had to process it later, and I never got flashbacks or anything because I just kept saying, thank you, God, that you saved me for another day. I'm alive, and that's all that matters now. And I went completely to the positive. I didn't what could have happened. I mean, I was handcuffed to a guy. They were taking us to shoot us, and I just didn't feel that. I think being older, I felt I didn't need the therapy, but I made all the young people who were with me go for therapy. So I never went, but I made everybody else go. And how soon do you go? Do you go straight away, or do you try and process it yourself? Would you work it?
Margaret, I think it depends. Thank you so much for bringing me some water. I think it depends again on the individual. I think it's wise that you made others get therapy, because debriefing can be important after trauma and prevent PTSD. But so I think in the initial 24 hours, your body is still in a place of shock and denial, and you generally would have so much adrenaline going on in your system, which you probably used for the House and Garden show. That adrenaline from the terror of that probably just kicked you into that that fight or flight, action. So made your heightened senses and probably did you a favor in that. But I think generally after about 24 to 36 hours, it is a good idea to speak to someone when you've been through something traumatic. Just to get basic tips of how to look after yourself, what to do, how to process the trauma is wise. I often say that one of the best things you can do not only is to speak to someone, but is actually to go for a massage as well, because we store trauma in our bodies. So I think the world would be a much better place if everyone had a weekly massage. If only we could all afford that, wouldn't it be amazing? But yeah, so I think it depends on the individual. But I think especially if you're still having flashbacks a month after a traumatic event and you have that hyper arousal and you're battling to sleep, or your appetite is impacted, you need to seek help for relief of that post-traumatic stress.
So what are the levels? I know the first is anger. There's certain ones that you've got to go through, and the final one's acceptance. What are the in-between stages of between anger and acceptance?
Okay, so are we talking about the stages of grief? Are you thinking about the Kubler-Ross, the stages? Okay, so she does do it as kind of stages. It has been depicted linearly, but in fact, research shows that you actually hop around from one stage to another. But the traditional thinking was that first you're in denial and shock, which is just like almost a coping mechanism, because your body can't cope with the pain that it's been exposed to. Then you move to anger, where you feel angry, as we've spoken about. Often you enter into a stage of bargaining. Okay, so what if I had done this? What if I hadn't done that? And often that can lead you to a place of guilt. So that's where it's useful to be speaking to someone. Is that true? Is that an irrational belief? Could you really have done more? Probably not, because people bargain, almost trying to battle to come into some place of acceptance. And then the next level is a place of depression and sadness. Once you can actually deal with the intense pain of whatever you've been through. And once you move through that valley of depression and sadness, often in the valleys of life, that's where the soil is most fertile. You move more into a place of acceptance, where you're able to find gratitude and joy in life again. And then this is the sixth stage, which I spoke about earlier, was the finding meaning. You're able to find meaning in what has happened to you, which is kind of the whole grief experience. But it's not like that. It's a bit of a tangled ball, a kind of a mess. Yeah.
Now, I've got a friend who lost her child, and she now, when she goes out, she puts the radio on. And I said, why have you put the radio on? No, because the child, she doesn't want to leave her on her own because she's got her ashes there. And that, to me, that was very freaky. Is that normal, or is it not normal, or is it a coping mechanism? What do you say to a person like that? I just went, oh, and I thought, I'm not going to say a word after that.
Yeah, I like that, Margaret, because the thing is, everyone grieves differently. And if that helps her in her grief, that's okay. I think the big thing about grief is also not to judge how other people grieve. They say often when parents lose a child, which is probably one of the worst things that anyone could go through, not that we enjoy comparing suffering, but often marriages struggle. And it's because partners judge each other as to the way they grieve. So if we can learn to be non-judgmental and compassionate with the way in which others grieve, I think that would be very helpful, and is a helpful thing, because I think judgment of grief can be detrimental. So I love that you didn't say anything to her, because if that helps her heart, if that makes her feel better and makes her leave the house, to connect with others, that's awesome.
Okay.
Deb, speaking of judgment, I think sometimes people also sort of become afraid or scared to sort of take the next step and move into a place of acceptance and finding meaning and finding joy and happiness again, for fear of, people have comments like, oh, it's only been 6 months, or it's only been 2 weeks, or, there's no sort of timeline in terms of grief. And because everybody does it so differently, some people can find that joy and meaning and happiness in 2 weeks. Other people, it takes 20 years or never happens. So I think sometimes we become like self-critical, as well as society sort of goes, oh, she only lost her husband 8 months ago and now she's married again, or whatever it is. So I think what would your message sort of be? Is there a timeline for grief? Or how do people move from that space without that judgment? That space of, because I think sometimes we forget that you can be sad and happy at the same time. You can be incredibly angry that you've lost someone, but incredibly grateful that you still have people. Whatever it is, we can experience both those things at the same time, but sometimes we don't allow ourselves to, or allow other people to, at least. So what would your sort of message be there?
Jess, I love what you're saying. I actually did a grief talk the other day, and I used the acronym of grief. And the G was go with the flow. The R, go with the flow with your emotions. The R was for reflect, much of what we talked about, mindfulness and awareness. But what you're speaking about is the I, which is the integrate. And that is being able to integrate grief into life. And that is when you are grieving, to be able to give yourself and others a permission slip to be happy, and to grieve and to be happy. And it's okay to not feel guilty if you're grieving, to experience moments of pleasure and to allow others that as well. Because life is, as I said, such a mixture of the positive and the negative. There's like a balance. So it's not either or, but and. So I've just pulled up the slide here, but it's joy and sadness. It's hard and it's a rich time of growth. You're grieving and you're resilient. You're able to hunt the good and find pockets of peace, even in the chaos and the trauma. And I think it's those moments that can help us to stay alive and to have the will to live. So it's so good to actually take moments and say, this is a happy moment. And be grateful for those moments. And in the beginning, after massive grief, those moments may be few and far between. But as time goes on, you'll find you'll have more and more of those moments where you can find joy and be grateful. And I think that's part of the grieving journey. That's your moving towards hope and healing, is being cognizant of the moments where I'm surviving. I'm surviving. I'm a survivor.
I've lived through this. Yeah, Stacey, from your side, having experienced such extreme grief and worked through it, what is your advice to other girls who are going to go through the same thing? When I say girls, I mean boys and girls go through the same thing.
Yeah, my biggest thing is to be honest with yourself, to be honest with how you're feeling. And if you are feeling rotten, that's okay, to work through that and potentially see somebody. So a friend of mine has been going through a really tricky divorce, and she just hit rock bottom, and it was a complete grief period for her. It was like her life had ended. Everything she knew had come to an end in her mind. And being able to process it and talk through it with friends, and eventually seeing different counselors and different specialists in different areas, and being able to process it. She has processed that grief period of her marriage and her previous life, and now she's a different person as a result of it. So my thing is always, don't stay in a place, go with it, walk the process, talk to somebody, let your friends help, let a professional help you, and move with the processes. And Deb, I mean, you know best.
Yeah, she sure does.
Yeah.
Now, we've got Natasha's coming here. She says her question is, how do you deal with individuals that cause a traumatic situation to get worse, to deteriorate, get worse? They're not helping it. They're there and they're making it worse for you. How do you deal with them? How do you tell them to go away and keep their ideas to themselves?
I think that comes down to boundaries, setting healthy boundaries and being kind to yourself, recognizing I can't be around this person at this time. So very gently saying, please respect my need for privacy, or I'm afraid I just can't do that right now. Please understand. In fact, on one of the grief courses we ran in the last 3 years, they suggested writing a letter to people close to you about what it is that you need at this time of grieving and how they can help you. Because as you said earlier, Margaret, many people don't know what is helpful and what is not helpful. That person, I'm wondering, that person who asked the question, that person may have thought they were helping, but in fact, they're doing a whole lot of harm in the situation. People try their best, but their best might not be the best.
It doesn't go down well with you. Now, you know, it's
So
me.
I think it's about being honest. I like what Stacey's saying. You need to be honest with those around you. I would encourage for that individual to be honest with the person and say, at this point, we need space, or whatever it is. Please give us our space. And you can be kind, but clear. I think clear and kind and assertive. And I think it's an important time to be assertive about what you need, and to express that in a kind, clear way.
Absolutely. Now, it's Mental Health Awareness Month this month in South Africa for the whole of October. So that's why we wanted to do this now and create awareness and reduce the stigma of people who are suffering with mental health, you know. And as you say, you suffer with other things. You've got a sore foot, you'll go to the foot doctor. You've got a sore stomach, you go to a stomach doctor, but you get a sore brain, you don't know who to go to. So what's your message out there to anyone who's not feeling so good, to let them know that they're not alone and it's okay to be okay? You don't have to be fantastic and top of the pops all the time, and it's okay if you're feeling that things are not quite right and you're going to ask for help, and you'll always get someone commenting, and how not to worry about what other people say about you, because after all, you're the most important person in your life. You've got to put the oxygen mask on you first before you can help all the others. What is your message to those girls out there who really want to go out and get some help but just a bit nervous? What's my husband going to say? I know one of our staff members went through a very traumatic time, and I said to him, you've got to get help. And he said, that's a sign of weakness. I'm okay. I'll do help. And I said to him, in the old days, that was okay, but now it's not. It's, it's considered a sign of stupidity if you don't go and get help.
Exactly. In fact, it's a sign of weakness if you
I
don't
don't
get
have
help.
your job. I don't have your job because I have to call a spade a spade.
I think it's arrogant if you don't get help when you need help. It's almost. But oh gosh, Margaret, you've given us so much wisdom in asking the question. You've given us so much wisdom. Look after yourself. You are the only person that can look after yourself. And I know it's hard if you're a helper, if you're a people-pleasing, giving person. It's hard to say, let me look after myself. It's like, I think what Jess said, what would you do for your child? Do it for yourself. Get help if you need help. And also know that hard times pass. Negative emotions pass. They're like waves. Everything in life goes up and goes down. So seasons of difficulty will pass. But having said that, you can't just stay a victim in whatever hard place you are. You need to think, what can I do to move towards being a victor? And that's when it is up to each individual to be proactive and to seek help and to make a difference about what they can do, in their life to get
what
better.
I do to people, I have a lot of people coming, oh, Mrs. Hirsch, I'm so depressed, I don't know what to do. And I say, the first thing you got to do is get out and help everybody else. Oh, and I think I've frozen again. Oh.
No, we can hear you though.
We can hear you.
Yeah.
No, that's
I'll jump
but
in
I
if
think
you
what
quickly.
Margaret was saying about helping others is so true. Often I encourage my clients who are suffering from depression to do something of service to others, Because when we are giving, we often find meaning, and it gives us a sense of purpose. So if you are feeling depressed, do something that will give you a sense of purpose. Use your God-given talents to go and serve someone else. And often that will open doors for new and exciting things in your life that can restore your joy. So ask yourself, what makes you come alive? And make sure you're doing something of that in your life. Does that make sense, ladies?
It does. And I think, Deb, we also forget sometimes that emotions are just messages. I know it's something we've spoken about quite a bit, but you know, what is your body, your brain, whatever it is trying to tell you, and what can you then do for yourself in that moment to ease it or make it better or work through it? And I think when we don't listen to those messages and we don't do what we need in the moment, that's when it sort of becomes overwhelming and compounding and burnout, stress, etc., etc. So to just sort of tune in and deal with it as it sort of comes. So
and that's why you mentioned, I mentioned in my bio, Tula time. Like that is, we lead such busy lives. We don't, sometimes I'll just sit on my bed and set my alarm clock for 20 minutes and not read anything, not journal, not do anything, just have complete space to think, okay, what is going on in my body, in my heart right now? To have that time of reflection. You know, that I
was meant to ask about that.
Yeah, that peace and quiet, kind of that white space, just to think what is going on. And our brains are so active in those moments, actually, but it helps us to be more mindful of what is going on. Sorry, you were about to ask something.
I just wanted to quickly touch base here. Upsana, I hope I'm saying that correctly. She just wanted you to recap the grief, the G being for go with the flow, R, reflection, I, integrate, and the E and the F were for?
Yes. So I really enjoy doing this talk. It's a beautiful talk that I give to organizations and businesses and stuff. It's on grief. And I love for people to remember things, to walk away having had tools that they can apply in their lives. So my acronym for grief is G, go with the flow. Feel your emotions, know that you work through them, don't push them down, go with the flow, especially when it comes to grieving. If you want to cry, cry. It's nature's way of healing. G is go with the flow. R is reflect, just what we were talking about. That's Tula time. That's writing things out, that's getting things out, reflect. I is integrate. So being able to grieve and find joy. That's the integration, not the either or, it's the and. It's being wounded and wise. It's being, now I've lost that. It's sort of being peaceful, but having that sadness within. I'm losing my words. Okay, so let me go on to the next one. E is for energy. Okay, energy management. And that's energy in, we spoke about the seeds of self-care, right? And the energy out is those stages of energy change, the 5 stages of grief, the 6 stages of grief that we've spoken about. And then finally, the F is for finding meaning. So in fact, that encapsulates, weirdly, what we've spoken about today in a beautiful way. So thank you to that person for asking the acronym, because it's a beautiful summary of our discussion today. So if someone could write that up in the chat, that would be fantastic.
Wonderful. Now, thank you so much. And just Stacey, a quick recap from you.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you so much. You gave us so much food for thought, Deb. And one of the things that I love that you said was basically how we all deal with it differently and write a letter to those you love. That is my big takeaway. And because it goes back to me dealing with my grief with my brother when I lost him. My husband also lost his brother, and they were equally as close as we were. They were best friends. They did everything together. And he dealt with it so differently to me. And it was a bit of a challenge with how I wanted people, I wanted messages, I wanted to cry, I wanted to grieve, and he wanted to just go and hide in a hole. And he wanted to just be alone. He wanted no one to contact him. He wanted to just be sad. And we had to really negotiate our emotions with each other and feel what each other was feeling and live it through our marriage. And that was really powerful because I didn't expect him to behave in that way or experience in that way. And he kind of was shocked in how I was experiencing it. So being able to write a letter and put those emotions on paper is incredibly powerful. So thank you.
I can imagine that must have been such a journey for you both.
Yeah, that's hectic, Stacey, I promise you. But anyway, Jess, a wrap up from you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Deb. It's really been so amazing. I think for me, it's the integrate and sort of acknowledging that, the grieving doesn't go away. I don't know if it does get easier. You've lost the person. That missing doesn't just go away. The missing will always be there, but it's about learning to still find joy, still find happiness, and sort of live in their honor. If you think about what that person would want you to do, it certainly wouldn't be to stay in sadness and depression and guilt and anger and all those sort of things. So I know it's a lot easier said than done, but to figure out a way to find that meaning and to integrate the joy with the sadness is, I think, the ultimate goal for all of us. And if we can't do it alone, Deb is amazing.
Thank you.
So Deb, a wrap up for you to all the girls watching today.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who joined us. And I really hope and pray that there'll be some nugget of wisdom today that will help you as you navigate life and our grief journeys. Because throughout life, we're going to experience grief and loss and hard times. And as I said earlier, remember, hard times are valleys. They're not cul-de-sacs. They're not dead ends. You come through the valleys of life. And that is where the soil is fertile. That is where you grow. In my years of work, I've seen that there's more post-traumatic growth than there is post-traumatic stress. Yes. So hold on to that wherever you are at this moment.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much to you, Deb, because you're just amazing and just wonderful that you can do the work that you do and be there for people when they really, really need you the most. So thank you so much for being the fabulous person that you are, the fabulous friend to my darling daughter, and to the wonderful, wonderful wife and mother that you are as well. I think it's just absolutely incredible. And thank you so much for being on the show today. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you giving of your time in the middle of all the other things that you're doing. And thank you so much. And as I say, I hope that we've been able to help some of the girls watching today, because if you feel that you need some extra help, Deb is there. You can contact me and I'll give you all her details, but it'll be on my Facebook page as well. So thank you so much all for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you to my co-hosts Jess and Stacey, and thank you especially to our fantastic speaker Deborah and Gavin. Thank you all for joining us and have a wonderful month. We'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Margaret.
Thanks, Margaret.
Deb.
Thanks, Deb.
Bye.